And today we're going to talk about something we've never talked about before. And I want you to think about a three-step process. And to set this up, we're going to talk about how to map coaching solutions to your leadership, to creating internal partners, to your training initiatives, to your job expectations, whatever it is. But think about a three-step process. Number one, someone gets trained, they get educated, they take a workshop, online learning, whatever it is. Then they enter the workforce. Something happens at stage two. So, number one, they've been trained, they've been educated, and they've now entered the workforce. Okay. And what I mean by enter the workforce, they've gone back to their job. So, when that happens, there's a pivotal moment. There's a pivotal moment. Something happens. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You can put it into the chat if you want, but when a boss says, I need to see in my office right away, what is the employee's first response? It's typically, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? What happens in that moment when it occurs? When it occurs, what happens? The person goes, uh-oh, what happened? Am I in trouble? Do they think about applying the training or learning they just left? Typically, no. Stage three is when they get back to the workforce, they start to apply their learnings, their trainings, their education. Yet if step two, someone says, I need to see in my office right away, and they get constructive feedback, that moment, it sounds crazy and it sounds so overly simplistic, but that employee doesn't look at the boss and say, no, I can't meet with you today. I've got to apply my learning. And I bet you're laughing. So that's one thing. Number one, managers have to be in alignment. They have to be in alignment with what people are going through in terms of learning, training, education, onboarding, or what have you. Now, I'm going to hit a second issue. The number one thing that really hinders managers from coaching in their minds is time. That's not the real reason. The real reason is they don't know what to do or say. They don't know what to do or say. So what happens is they end up getting into a situation. They send people off to training, or they're put into some corporate training. They come back to the workplace. They don't know what to do or say. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about creating coaching solutions. I'm going to introduce you to a concept called QALMS. QALMS is a very, very, very cool methodology that stands for questions, activities, learning projects, motivators, and supplemental coaching. So when we go through that, I'm going to go through each one of those components. Now, we call this a coaching map. Now, I don't know if this will show up as a link. Yeah, it probably won't. I'll just probably put it into the chat. But we're actually published in Forbes magazine on this, on how to coach to resilience using this methodology. So when we create our coaching solutions, we do something very interesting here at Progress Coaching. We take what we teach, but we use it as a tool to map coaching. So when we are teaching, what do we teach? We essentially teach people how to ask questions, how to facilitate activities, how to provide learning projects, motivators, and supplemental coaching. Let me give you a high-level overview of QALMS. When we're coaching someone, let's take someone with a negative attitude. Let's just take a very simple concept. Let's talk about someone with a negative attitude. The QAL is our questioning or our conversation model. It's our conversation model. So we're going to use a fictitious name, Bob. I'm going to call Bob in. I'm going to have an awareness conversation and say, Bob, we have an opportunity to up our game. We have an opportunity to take ourselves to the next level. I'm going to ask him questions such as, what happens when you're feeling negative? What's causing this? What's the opportunity to raise your game? The activity might be he needs to have better conversations with his fellow teammates. So I might, as an activity, practice with him. Now, the L is critical, the learning project. That starts and ends every conversation. So I might say, well, Bob, next time we get together, come in with 2 examples of where you really invested in your teammates by going above and beyond the call of duty, and share with me that success, and then share in the second one that maybe you missed an opportunity and what you might do differently. The learning project is done between the coaching sessions. It bestows ownership and accountability in the rightful owner, the person you're coaching. So let's go back through this. Bob comes in. We start off with the L, the learning project. So Bob, give me your examples. What am I going to do? I'm going to go right to the Q. I'm going to ask him questions. We're going to have a discussion. So what happened? What did you learn about yourself? What are you going to do to continue that activity? Well, let's practice that conversation you need to have with Lisa. The Q, the questions, help them build self-awareness. Remember, Tasha Urich says in her study, 95% of the people in the survey said they were highly self-aware. She tested them and found out only 10% were somewhat aware. Questions help build self-awareness. They also give you clarity as to why something's occurring. Activities. If it's a knowledge component, teach it, have them teach it back. If it's a skill component, practice it. Now, the A is the change agent. Most people will not change arbitrarily on their own. In this case, Bob's not going to go home and say to his wife, honey, I'd love to go out for dinner, but I've got to practice being a better teammate. They're going to come up with reasons why it's not them. That's why we need to coach. The L bestows accountability, accountability and ownership on the rightful owner. In this case, Bob, the person being coached. The QAL should only take you 8 to 10 minutes. Now, let's say that Bob feels like he's in the wrong seat in the bus. He doesn't want to get promoted, yet he really wants to work more with data and analytics. And let's just say he's in the accounting department and he's not really afforded an opportunity to do that. But his motivation is to get transferred to that department. Once you understand what motivates someone, we call it the motivator. The minute you know someone's motivation, you have an emotional attachment. So I might say, Bob, I was thinking about, embedding a better relationship with Lisa and continuing to thrive with your teammates. How do you think that will position you to get transferred? What do you think that will do to position you successfully? What are the odds potentially going up if you're viewed as a really good teammate by the manager of that other department? See, once you understand what motivates someone, not what you try to motivate, that's the biggest mistake leaders make. We try to motivate before we understand what motivates. Now, supplemental coaching. Supplemental coaching is techniques and tactics that do not take you any in-person time. So I might say to Bob, Bob, I want you to meet with Julie. Julie is a good friend. She's a manager of another department. She got transferred. She got promoted. She got into a department because she really changed the way she interacted with her teammates. I'd love to have you spend 2 or 3 meetings with her, just asking her how she made that transition. The second thing I might do is get him a book. Let's say My Iceberg is Melting. And what I might do is say, Bob, I want you to read this book. And then when you read this book, I want you to just tell me from the book what you learned about yourself and what you're positively committed to improving. Now, once he's done with that, I might give him the chicken soup books. So when I do that, what I might do is then position him to do what? Fuel his mind positively, which creates a better output with his teammates. So let me tell you a quick story. This is years ago. It's one of my favorite stories I always tell. And if you've heard it before, forgive me. I had a young sales rep at one of our client sites, maybe our flagship account. And it's a great company here in Wisconsin by the name of Inpro. And they're like family. And was there almost 15, 16 years, way too long, quite frankly. And we had a young guy who was hitting, sorry about that, 71% of goal of sales. Now, if you're not in sales, bear with me. This is not just about sales. And he was probably not going to keep his job. And I'm in the meeting where this is being discussed with a lot of leaders. So I kind of stood up for him and I said, well, let me coach him. And what I did, and I want you to think about this. I want you to go back to the qualms. I asked him some questions. I said, Chris, what are you willing to do? What do you think people's perception are? What's the value of being a great teammate? Very, very negative kid at the time. 22, right out of college. Remember, 71% of goal. Then when we'd get together, our activity would be, he would teach me some things that he loved to do on the weekends, and I would find out his hobbies. And then his learning project was, you know what? I want you to do a random act of kindness. It could be a cup of coffee. It could be bringing someone a soda when you go to the lunchroom. It could be anything you want. The motivator was he wanted to make money. That was his motivator back then, but he also wanted to go into management at some point. The supplemental coaching was really interesting. So think about the qualms here for a second. Let me just bring up the text here for you. So I would ask him questions every single time. We would do an activity. And the learning project was he had to do a random act of kindness. That always started our conversation. The motivator was he wanted to make money, but he wanted to also go into management. The supplemental coaching was really cool. I recruited 2 guys, Eric and Matt. All 3 guys are still at the same company. And I said, guys, can you do me a favor? Every time you hear him make a good call, just go promote him and say, wow, you sound good on the phone. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe once a month, just grab him for lunch, because he would eat lunch by himself. And this guy is a great guy, by the way. He just was misunderstood. So I'd say about 60 days into the relationship, the manager calls me pretty upset. He said, I don't know what you're doing, but this has nothing to do with sales, your coaching strategies. I said, no, they don't. I said, quite frankly, where I made a mistake, I probably should have involved you more. He said, we need to tactically get this kid selling. We got to teach him how to sell and handle objections. That's what I call tactical, strategic. He wasn't wrong, by the way. And I said, well, I said, let me explain my strategy. He goes to lunch by himself. He sits in a cubicle. If you watch in that cubicle, he doesn't engage a lot. I want to build up goodwill, not only in his mind, but around him. So we went 11 months. He went from 71 to 119% of goal. People were blown away. Now, I don't want to put myself on the pedestal because his manager ended up being a great coach. So then he inserted himself, started to do the tactical sales coaching, the sales training stuff. And guess what everybody wanted when they saw this kid's numbers go up? Coaching. Everybody wanted coaching. The 2 guys that invested in him actually became great coaches. They're now regional sales directors. And so what's so amazing is you can take that instant. And if you know and you have a coaching model, see, I think sometimes coaching is this nebulous thing that we're going to do and we're going to apply to somebody. You've got to have a methodology. And the methodology really needs to be woven into questions for clarity and self-awareness, activities to drive change, learning projects for accountability. That's your conversation model. Motivator, once you understand what motivates, you have a leverage and an emotional attachment. The supplemental coaching accelerates coaching that you're doing directly, but it doesn't take you any in-person time. Here's the greatest thing. The day that manager called me, Chris was serving pizza to everybody in their cubicle area, which they call SBU units. And I said, okay. And he said, Tim, it's ridiculous. They're all out there laughing and having fun. And he stopped himself. He said, okay, I get it. Here's the best part. The manager kicked me out of the relationship. But 11 months into it, he goes, I don't think you should coach him. I think that's my job. He's right. And he's a great coach. And so what happens is when you coach and you have a map to get there, really good things happen. And so how do you go about doing that? You've got to get trained in some methodology. You've got to have an apparatus. So if you remember, when you're creating coaching solutions, let me give you some examples. We do this with sales processes, customer service models, corporate values, mission statements. And so what we do at Progress Coaching is, I'll use Microsoft as an analogy. We have our program. Progress Coaching is a program. It's a model we teach, okay? You actually know the high-level components. We teach questioning skills. We teach how to build activities and hold accountability through learning projects. And that's our 4-step coaching conversation model. We teach how to coach and uncover people's motivations. And then we teach a whole variety of supplemental coaching strategies. That's what we teach high level. So Microsoft has like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Those are their programs. Progress Coaching is a program. Yet Microsoft uses like C++ or Visual Basic to build those programs. That's their programming language. Progress Coaching is also a programming language. So when I go into a company, and I just had one where they said, we have a very discrete sales model. We have very discrete sales expectations. They're really, really well defined. And I asked the VP of sales and I said, so how do you coach to that? He said, well, they should get together and, once every 2 weeks. And he starts to describe cadences and frequency and not bad stuff. And I said, but What are their skill levels with questioning skills, active listening skills, coming up with activities that facilitate and drive positive change? How are they going to hold them accountable? And let's be candid about accountability for a second. We tend to hold people accountable when they start missing stuff. Accountability has to be a proactive action. And he looked at me and he said, man, I don't know. I don't know if we're doing that. And I said, well, what if we created progress coaching for your sales model? And that's what we did. We're creating a program or a program for them that's going to resonate with their internal expectations, not what the outsider thinks they are. So what I essentially do is I look at their expectations, look at their sales process, and what do I apply for each step of their sales process? Qualms. That's it. So when you learn coaching, it doesn't have to be something that you just directly apply. See, a lot of times people will mistake our company for, oh, you do coaching. No, we teach coaching. And what's interesting about our model, this is the same model we've had for 29 years. We've adjusted and tweaked it and adjusted the way we teach it, I think like 22 times. So if you're interested, put into the chat, yes, if you would like to learn progress coaching and learn how to design coaching programs, we actually work with you. It can be a program or a coaching plan for an individual. It can be for not only an individual, but it could also be for a team. It could be for a company. It could be for your mission statement, your sales process, your customer service model. It doesn't matter to us. So once you learn progress coaching and qualms, you now have a model to deliver and to design coaching. Why? I'm going to make a comment. If you're an instructional designer, don't take offense to this. I was just talking to a company that kind of pushed us back and said, we don't need your services, and that's fine. We have a couple people who are designing our internal coaching. I said, oh, great. Who's doing that? They said, well, we have a team of instructional designers. And I must have given off an impression. I know the lady, and she goes, why? What's wrong? And I go, have they ever coached? And she said, no. I said, it would be like me teaching an automotive class. I've never fixed a car. I said, be careful, because learning how to ask questions and listening will be tough for leaders. Learning how to facilitate activities right in the middle of a conversation will be tough. Many leaders initially will forget to apply at the end. Bob, come in with 2 examples of, to bestow accountability and ownership again, to the rightful owner, the person being coached. Many people won't embrace coaching because of time. Excuse me. If they don't know how to do supplemental coaching or not even aware of its strategies, then time's going to become their anchor to fight. And she just looked at me. She goes, oh, wow. And I go, look, this is nothing against instructional designers, but you have to be a coach practitioner to understand what somebody goes through to design coaching to properly be not only designed, but well received. Sorry, I'm battling a tickle in my throat. So when you're coaching, have a model, but use that model to design. So let's say you have sales training, negotiation skills, objection, customer service skills, diffusing an angry customer, conversations at conflict. We use qualms for all of that. So again, put a yes into the chat if you're interested in learning about progress coaching and our design component qualms. It is really, really cool. So again, for this session, this workshop, I want you to think about when you are coaching, someone is in training, learning, onboarding. They're going to go back to this thing called the workplace. It's here where things fall apart or they accelerate. What if a manager is waiting, knowing here are the questions they need to ask, here are the activities they need to facilitate, here are the learning projects they need to create ownership and accountability. Here's how I'm going to find out what motivates, and here are the supplemental coaching strategies as it relates to this particular training initiative. I'm going to use a really non-educated term. You dummy-proof the coaching for the leaders, not because they're dumb, not because they're bad people, but you want to make it simple. Then the third component is they're reinforcing the training that's done over here. What happens here is critical. And you know what happens when we don't have that component to teach them? You know what leaders say at the end of the year? They throw it back to step 1 and say, we need more training. Training's not the problem. Training has never been the problem. Training reinforcement has been the missing piece. So what we have to do is position this middle step where leaders have employees coming back. We embrace it. We start asking questions, and they have a model that they can follow, a playbook. We call them coaching maps. You're mapping coaching strategies based on what they learned. And what happens is it brings everything together. I will tell you, we had a company, an agricultural firm, who takes their values, their corporate values, very, very seriously. They call them attitudes and actions. Now, I don't have their permission to share this. That's why I'm not going to use their name. And it's 8 core principles, really well defined. We embedded that into our coaching, and they still run it years later. They're in a train the trainer program with us. And David, one of their training leaders, always says, that's the part that resonates the most, because we live that. Not everybody does, but they really live their corporate values. I've been inside their company. They live it. So when you are learning coaching, if you can learn how to design, especially in a training department, you have now positioned people to become your training reinforcement partners. Put your thoughts down into the chat. Now, one last comment. Send me an email, and I didn't put my email down. I'll say it out loud. I should have put it down. Maybe I can. Oh, I can do it here. I didn't think I could do that. So I'm going to put my email down. And this is kind of a cool announcement that we're going to be hosting. Let me see. Tim@progresscoachingleader.com. I didn't know I could do that right in the middle of the session. So we're hosting the 2023 Progress Coaching Summit. We are only looking for 25 people. We're not going to look for hundreds because we probably wouldn't get it anyway. But we're doing something very interesting. Between now and October 1st, the price is $16.75. We are cutting that in half to October 1st. Here's the best part. We give you progress coaching and qualms and 1 year of coaching pods, which is our coaching pods community that does 2 workshops every single month. You can join. We have topics. Send me an email, put on the subject line, 2023 Coaching Summit. So what you get is progress coaching and the coaching pods for 1 year. That's what we typically charge $16.95. Here's the best part. If you sign up and come, it's in Orlando, Florida, right near Disney. And if you sign up, you're going to pay only about $870 some bucks or $860 some dollars. You take care of your hotel and travel. You get the progress coaching and qualms for free. And you get a second person who cannot come to the summit, also progress coaching and qualms for free. That's $3,200. Basically, the summit is free. I know that sounds weird, and we call it scaled pricing. So what we want to do is have a very intimate, very intensive 2-day training. Here's the best part. The first day is coaching and practice. How do I coach to motivation, teamwork, career development? And we have a whole list of topics. I can send those to you. Day 2 is how do I design? And you're going to use qualms. The best part is then you have a year with us with training, coaching practice through our coaching pods, and a second person totally free. So send me an email at tim@progresscoachingleader.com if you're interested. It is April 17th and 18th. The dinner the night before is April 16th, which will be our kickoff dinner. And then it's 2 days of workshops of really intensive understanding how to coach and design coaching. I hope this met your expectations. So again, send me an email, put on the subject line 2023 Coaching Summit. We'll send you some information. We'll go from there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Appreciate you guys always attending.